Live, says the Hangouts. Hello, everybody. This is another Wednesday edition of the Massachusetts Beer Reviews and Company. If you haven't been able to tell from the title, we have sour beers to discuss. Our good buddy from Mobile, Alabama, claims he's running late. John H. Pierre, TV Rambler, and that he would be joining later. Invitation is extended to Mr. John Anele from down in Georgia, and the invitation has gone out to the rest of the beer community. But so far, it is myself, Thomas Mel 75, Massachusetts Beer Reviews channel of YouTube, with always Michael Komaroff, YouTube beer contributor.
Always great to be here.
Brooklyn, New York, and again, it is sour beer examination. And which sour beer have you chosen to bring this evening, Michael?
This is out of the Bell's portfolio. It's called Bell's Latest Sour Ale, and that is Larry, who's the picture of on your. I don't know who Larry Bell is. Maybe he's the owner. I don't know who he is, but anyway, that's a Larry who's on there with those sunglasses he's wearing.
All right.
And obviously, we're going to be discussing it. I'm going to open it and pour it.
Okay. Mine is, I don't know if it's pronounced Silly. I'm going to go with that. It's pronounced Silly, all right? This is the Silly Sour Ale. This is from Brasserie des Silly in a town called Silly or Silly, Belgium. It is 5.5% alcohol by volume in an 11.2-ounce European-style bottle, which I believe in milliliters is 330, sure, I think so. And this one is, they say on the back of the bottle, it is a unique brew that blends 13% traditional dark Saison with 87% soured ale. So that's kind of interesting. And Gabriel Salia is watching the channel and says, hi, guys, or hi, cheers to beer drinking. Cheers to you, Gabriel Salia. So, yeah, what makes a sour beer a sour beer? What to you is some key characteristics to sour beers?
It seems to me it has to have at least a mild amount of that pucker effect when you drink it. In other words, it puckers you up when you drink it. But it's varying degrees. Some of them pucker you a lot, and some of them just, a little bit. But some of the puckering, it has to have at least a simple tartness in order to be sour to me. But there's such a wide degree because some of them are very sour and some just have mild sourness.
Yeah, I usually will attribute sour beers and wild kind of yeast beers almost can kind of sort of be one and the same, but it kind of depends on what the yeast strain in the beer is trying to achieve in terms of flavors. A lot of beers from Belgium that are sour beers are typically a lot less ABV. That doesn't mean they can't be higher ABVs. Typically, they're lower, more sessionable kind of beers, and they use a yeast strain that you've probably heard of in the beer community. It's called Brett, B-R-E-T-T for short, but that's shortened for Brettanomyces, which is a yeast strain in which when the brewers are brewing the beer, when they're fermenting the sugars and the yeast into alcohol, they open up the fermentation tanks in these wild yeast strains. And this wild yeast strain, Brettanomyces, is basically just taking what's ever in the air and is eating what's ever in the air in the atmosphere at the time. And that's sort of what creates the fermentation and gives it a sour kind of a note. You can also get lactobacillus, which is just another kind of bacteria strain that makes sour beers really sour. Another thing that I always notice is sometimes there can be like a lemon juicy kind of a tartness. There can almost be like a vinegary kind of an acidic kind of a bite. So you can have lighter beers, you can have darker beers. They're known as funky, tart, sour, wild, yeast strain beers, whatever you want to call them. Those are kind of really big characteristics.
They seem to be in the early end of the color scale too, more from like a light blonde through maybe a little bit of a darker golden color. They don't tend to be in the darker area. You know,
Right.
have you seen any sours that were brown or black? I don't remember.
The one that I'm drinking this evening.
Okay, yours is dark. Okay, so
because
because
what they say on the website or on the back of the bottle is that this is a blended beer. Again, this is a blend.
Okay.
The Silly Sour is a blend.
You said
it's a brew that
87%.
blends 13% traditional dark saison with 87% soured ale.
Okay, so that's why, because the dark saison is what's giving it the color.
Yeah, this particular beer, they say on the silly-beer.com, they say it is brewed with 13% young beer and 87% aged beer. What else did they say? The brewery was founded in 1850, and they have it in more of like a tulip kind of a glass, like a Duvel, but I just am using a St. Bernardus kind of a glass. So yeah, it's definitely in some light, definitely like a dark red mahogany kind of a color. Outside of the light, it's like a dark brownish purple kind of a look to it. There isn't a huge amount of head. I think like they have on their website in a more of a tulip glass, there'll be more of a head to it. It's just sort of an off-white head.
That's a nice looking beer though.
It's got a lot of, when I lift up the legs, I can see that there's a lot of active carbonation. There's tons of small bubbles. And I guess I'll get to the nose too, and then we'll get to So the nose is super duper. Okay, this is not St. Bernardus. Super duper. It's got a lot of raisiny figs and dark chocolatey notes. I don't really get a whole bunch of souring. There could be like a light vinegary kind of a acidic note in the background, but it's not huge at all. What I'm kind of getting is more of a Belgian dark ale or a Belgian dark strong ale or a quadruple in the very dark fruity qualities and the very sort of on the darker side of the chocolate notes. Maybe a little bit of like woody notes to it, maybe like a cedar or like a barrel or like an oak or something. But that's really about it. It's pretty malt forward with just a little bit of that vinegary acidic note, just a little bit to remind you that it kind of is a sour, but if you didn't even know this was a sour, you might not even think of that.
Okay, let me show you mine.
Very nicely blended.
I'm getting, I think you can probably see it, a very spongy white head.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you look at it, it's not a strong hazy beer, but it's not clear. So there's kind of like a mild haze to it. And
sure.
It's golden in color, kind of a yellow golden color.
Looks
and
like a macro.
Or kind of that color. And it has good head retention because it poured a larger head than this, so it's declined a little bit. But as you swirl it, you're getting the head back on the top. And let me give you the nose. It's interesting. It's funny, and I'm trying to see. I did taste this. Let me see if it's the same thing I got. What you said before, you're getting kind of a lemony citrus in the nose on this one. So a lemony citrus, and that same thing you mentioned before, that lactic sour quality is also there in the nose.
Mm-hmm.
But let me see if I get anything else. It's funny. I'm watching Matt from Massive Beer Reviews, and he does this for the nose. He puts his hand.
Oh yeah, just to block anything else out in the room.
And I wonder, because I've tried that. To me, that really doesn't make that much difference to me, because if your nose is good, you should be able to pick it up. But I think it just helps you to get any other smells that might be outside of the glass away from possibly the nose. That's what I would guess. But it has a pleasant smell. And is that coming from me or from you? Did you just get a a beep?
Oh, I'm getting a call from somebody. I don't know who's calling us. It's probably some idiot. Oops, I'm sorry.
It's not,
Who's calling us?
It's not somebody who's trying to join.
Yeah, it is. John H. Pierre.
Can
Click the link, you
can you
genius.
send him a link? Why don't you just hit
Click
the
the link. Don't call us.
He's on Beer Talk 2018. Why doesn't he just
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't get it. I'm ready to try my beer. So
right,
you know what?
Hit it. I'm ready to describe it in
your book.
In my book. How is it?
Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. This is, so a lot of people, I don't know if anybody's had a lot of sour ales or know anything about a lot of sour beers or Belgian beers, but there's one really famous, popular one that is it's not contracted, but it's made in Belgium, and they slap on the beer label and they sell it at the Monk's Cafe, which is literally like a Belgian sort of a style restaurant.
That's in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia, it's called the Monk's Cafe, which is a Flanders red ale, and that's a really great beer if you've never had sour beers. But I would actually say that this beer right here, this Silly or Sillet sour, is actually even a better beer for people that are new into Belgian beers, because they're using this dark saison.
So it's like a good starter sour.
Yeah, because they're using the dark saison and they're blending it with mostly sour beer, you're actually not really getting a huge sour note initially. You're getting those notes that I talked about, which are the dark fruits, the raisins, the figs, the plums, chocolate, dark chocolate kind of notes, maybe some woody, oak kind of notes to it.
It's following the nose. The first taste you're getting follows the nose.
So John has to stop calling us. John H. Pierre, stop calling us.
I'll ignore it. I'll ignore it because
click the damn link. All right, so after you get this, like this Belgian darker beer kind of a taste, and then after that immediately is where you get that lactic, almost like a lemon juice, kind of a tart, slightly vinegary kind of a note to it. But it's such a dry finishing beer.
I know that's not John H. Pierre calling me.
I hope not. It's such a dry finishing beer. The mouthfeel.
Hi, John. He has arrived.
Hey guys, how are y'all?
Excellent.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna be real quick, guys. Sorry, Eric, Michael, what's up? Dealing with some stuff here. Outside right now. So a lot of drama. But anyway, I just figured let me just in between the drama have some good time.
Excellent.
I got my Little Miss Sour Tangerine Sour Ale from Chandelier Brewery Company in Gulfport, Mississippi. So right not far from where me and JR down here in Mobile. So
excellent. So as I was saying, I'm drinking this beer called, I think it's Silly or Sillet sour. Again, they're using 13% dark saison and mixing it with 87% sour ale. So like I said in the nose and in the taste, I'll just reiterate that for you guys, that it's very chocolatey.
I'm drinking from the can.
It's very chocolatey. It's very dark fruit qualities. This is like a Belgian dark strong ale or a quadruple. And then is where you get, right after that, is where you get this vinegary kind of a tart, lemon juice kind of feel.
Right.
It's a very dry beer. It's a medium to light towards medium. It's very crisp, but it's very fine particulates it's very fine bubbles. It's not really big. It doesn't have much of a carbonation burn, and it's easy drinking and very refreshing. So,
what's the alcohol content? Does it say on the bottle?
5.5% by volume.
Okay. Do you want John to go next?
Check my ABV on this.
John, do you want to go next in your description?
Describe your beer.
Okay, give me 1 second. Mine is 6. My sour is 6% ABV. It's again, Little Miss Sour Ale from Chandelier Brewing Company in Gulfport, Mississippi. This is what the can looks like, as you can see on my phone.
There it
I'm
is.
doing this from my phone from down the street, not far from my house, but I'm doing some project right now, so this is what the beer looks like. Anyway, I don't have a glass with me, unfortunately, so I had to drink it from the can. So this is Hood Beer Review.
Hood beer review featuring sour ale.
As long as you're doing it, it's cool. Describe it to us.
Yeah.
What you tasting?
I'm not big on sours, like I said, but I think these beers are very made for, obviously, with the weather you guys have been dealing with and we're dealing with here, because tonight's supposed to be 39 degrees here in Mobile, Alabama, which is kind of odd. But some of that some of that cold Arctic air is making its way down here to the southeast. So anyway, these beers are perfect for the summertime. I'm getting a lot of tangerine taste to this. Yeah. More tangerine, more salt, but more tangerine flavor to this. But again, I know why I'm not big on sour ales. I like them, but I think they're perfect for the summer, not for much else. I think that's what they are. Thirst quenching, refreshing brews to have in the summer months.
Is it tart and sour?
Go ahead, Michael.
Enough, John, to make you pucker? Because that's the test of a sour.
Very tart, more tart than sour, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, my beer is not very. I wouldn't say
more
that
tart
my
than
beer,
sour.
I wouldn't say that the silly sour here is very mouth puckering. Not really. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's primarily mostly tasting like a darker Belgian quad or just a dark.
Okay, let me show John what I have. As long as he's here, he can see mine.
Yeah.
John, this is from Bell's. It's called Larry's Latest Sour Ale, and it's a kettle sour.
Sounds good.
With a dry hop burst.
I like the label. I'm digging the label.
5% ABV.
I dig the label.
Looks very artsy fartsy.
All right, this is what it looks like. The the head has been fading. When I first poured it, the head was up to here, and now it's down to there. So it's like one of these where it still has a nice white head. You know, it's a little bit hazy, but not very hazy. And I described the nose, which I'm going to read. Okay. I kind of
recap us on that.
What I said. Lemon citrus with kind of a lactic kind of feel to the nose. And okay. I'm going to give my first taste now.
Cheers.
Okay, mine is more sour than tart.
All right.
It's not the heavy pucker kind of sour. It's kind of like a minor pucker. Little bit, but not, it's not in your face sour. So I would say it's mildly sour, for what that's worth, mildly sour. And the sourness kind of fades into a tartness. So it starts out sour and then it gets tart. It's very drinkable.
What's the ABV on it again, Michael? The ABV?
5%. Yeah, sour beers
this
aren't
one is
typical.
A 6.
Yeah, sour beers, that might be one of the higher ones I've heard of. They just usually aren't huge alcohol percentage beers.
So the pucker and the tartness.
This is 6%.
The pucker and the tartness in mine fades, and once it fades, you're getting kind of what you got, Eric. There's like maltiness behind it, which is very interesting. Now, there must be something in the way these kettle sours are made where they must put in extra malt, because the malt comes through after your first initial. Now it's kind of a malt. It's not like you would get in a Scotch ale or that. It's not those heavy malts. It's kind of a lighter malt. But it's good.
But we all agree, guys, sour ales are good for the spring and summer, right? Not,
yes,
that's what they're pretty much for.
That's what they're for sure.
Would you agree?
Are you going to, John, are you going to get any snow there or not? Because it can.
Here, no, we're not supposed to get any snow, but it's been nighttime. The next couple of days is going to be cold. It's going to be in the 30s. and then during the day it's in the 60s, and it's just like a huge temperature drop.
Wow.
You know, tomorrow will be the same, and then this weekend we're supposed to get some rain, a lot of rain, Saturday and Sunday. So,
Eric and I are in the midst of
it's just weird weather we've been getting.
You remember when you lived in New Jersey? We're in the midst of this nor'easter.
Yes, I do.
And it's kind of
yes.
We're not getting
many nor'easters,
snow, but getting some.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, they would always say this is the biggest snowstorm we've had since the previous year, or maybe since 20 years ago, or this snowstorm is bigger than that snowstorm. So, just
all I know
just
is
deal with it, and
we understand.
All I know is it's not Friday night, and it's not last Friday, and it's not last Saturday where the power was out. So screw that. That was terrible.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad everything worked out for you, Eric.
Yeah, we got the lights on. Hooray! I'm here. So, what
everybody's well. All the families well. Everybody.
Yeah,
all the families doing well. Good.
We are alive and happening. That's all that matters.
Today is my daughter's 29th birthday.
Cheers! I'm gonna turn 30.
Happy birthday to her.
Her name is Bryce.
Cheers! Sour beer for your birthday. There you go.
Bryce like the canyon.
All right. So what are your thoughts about the tangerine sour you're drinking there, Sean? What's your overall
my thoughts is, like I said, it's more tart than sour. This unique brew is soured with our house culture and flour, followed with a clean ale fermentation. That's what the labeling says on this one. Chandler Island. Like I said, it's more tart than sour. It's more, again, the tangerine flavor is pretty much there. It's going down smooth. I don't know why they say 6%. It tastes more like a 4% beer, in my opinion.
Woo! All right, dangerous beer if you drink too much of it.
Eric, I didn't mention that.
Yeah, well,
Larry's latest sour is filtered.
It doesn't look like it.
Probably that's what they may have done with Chandelier with this one too. So.
Yeah, I can't really tell. I'm trying to look in the light, and I can't really tell if my beer's actually filtered or not. It might be a little bit hazy. Oh, Jean H. Pierre. Woo.
John, Jay's excuse for not coming is he doesn't like sours, and I think he should stick it because I've been to the macro ones, and I don't like macros. Now, maybe some of us are more willing to be joiners than others. Whatever, we'll get over it.
Yeah, sure. So if you had to rate that sour, that tangerine sour there, Jean, what are you thinking about for a rating?
I guess for this style, I would say between 1 to 5. I would say maybe a 3.7. I think for the style, I would rate it that way. Again, like Jay, I'm not big on sours, but again, I know why they have them out there. And again, like I said, not to be repetitive, these are beers basically for summer days, summer nights when just like the goose, Abita, what the Abita has this 2 Goose whatever sour they put out, kind of similar, very similar in style and flavor and just the method of how they put this together. So these are summer refreshing, quench thirsting sort of beers. I would put these in the same category as a wine cooler, or maybe what's that Plank Road Brewery thing they got out right now, that 2 lime light beer that's flavored. I did a review of that. I don't know if you saw that review. The 2 lime something. 2 hats. 2 hats.
Haven't heard of it.
2 lime.
I'll have to look for the review.
From Plank Road Brewery, of course, Miller, makers behind Ice House.
So Red Dog.
It's similar style. It tastes similar to me. So, and that's how I would have put it in the category. But again, I'm not big on sour beers, but
sure.
To each his own.
I'm going to give mine a C+.
Okay.
An 80.
And what in your mind is leaning you towards that rating?
Okay,
that
I like more puckery sours. So I would like it to be more puckery. I also am thinking that when it does its fast fade, it doesn't maintain the taste profile. And I want it to be a long-lasting sour. Yours sounds like the best one of all the ones we've had.
I mean, this beer is good, and I have nothing extremely negative to say about the beer in and of itself here. Again, I'm drinking depending on how it's pronounced in Belgium, it could be Silly. I'm going to call it Silly Sour, from the town of Silly, Belgium, from the Brasserie des Silly. So they're just silly people over there. Silly as all friggin' hell. So yeah, this I think we've described in all of these beers, but I think mine is probably even more so than in John's beer, or in Michael Komarov's beer. That this one just isn't really. It's not really that sour, and if it is sour, it's a little bit. They're just a little bit of a small amount of this vinegary, lemon, juicy kind of thing in the background. There's just not a whole bunch that's screaming to me like you're drinking a sour beer, stupid. Like it's not. It wouldn't be like if Lagunitas made a beer called Sour Stupid. This beer would not be a great name for this beer. This would not be a sour stupid beer. But it's got nice lacing, and I really do, in general, I don't know what they're using for a dark saison, but I think the dark saison is really great in the beer. Again, for me, it has this Belgian quad, or this Belgian dark strong ale, chocolatey, kind of a woody, raisiny, dark fruit kind of a quality, just with a little bit of that vinegary, kind of a lemon juicy note. So for it being a really great sour, I don't think it's a really great sour beer as it stands. But if I had to give it a rating just based on what I think of it, I mean, a straight, like an 84 is probably perfectly acceptable for it.
Is that
it's
full C? Is it 84?
Well, that'd be a B. That would be a B plus.
Yeah, that's
B
just
minus.
that's a straight B for me.
Straight B, okay.
It's just not a great sour if you're looking for a great sour beer. It almost doesn't even have tartness. I mean, it's got light tart flavors. There's no puckering whatsoever to be found in this beer, which is why I say that this would be a really great one to introduce somebody to sour beers. But even the Monk's Cafe by far isn't. I don't think the Monk's Cafe is quite as complex of a beer as the Silly or the Silly Sour, but I think it's a much greater introduction. I think it's a much greater introduction to an actual sour flavor to a beer. This has some of those light sour notes, but they're almost not even perceivable unless you were thinking about it. Unless you were looking to find sour notes in this, you might not even find them. And if I was blindfolded, once again, like I say, I might think this is some kind of a darker Belgian pale ale, or dark, what did I say, dark, Belgian dark strong ale, even though it doesn't taste that strong. I'm trying to think of a style of Belgian beers that are dark like this.
Well, maybe it's a Belgian, there's a Belgian single, because a double would be a little bit higher, but maybe a Belgian single dark ale.
Yeah, you know what, to be completely honest, now that I get, because I am at the end of the bottle, now that I get towards the end of the bottle is where it starts to pucker up a little bit. To be completely honest, getting closer to where that yeast has settled at the bottom of the bottle, I am getting a little bit more of that.
The yeast held the sour maybe a little bit.
Mm-hmm. There definitely is a lot more lactic souring notes to it. And again, it's a great introduction to sour beers. I'm still going to give that an 84. But once you get to the bottom of the glass, it gets more and more sour. So that's an improvement. Get to the bottom of the glass on this sour stuff. So, yeah, I'm going to give it an 84. I can't
What's
really say.
What's the ABV on that one, Eric, again? What's the ABV?
5.5. And it's got like a Ford. It's got like a Ford race car looking ZZ Top car on it. Go figure. and they started in 1850. The silly brasserie days, silly. I can't really say that I dislike sour beers, so this beer just isn't a really great example of the style of sour beers, but I think it's really done well. And yeah, I'm just kind of curious here as we wrap up. We should have said this beforehand, but what's everybody's? So now that we've all tried our sour beers, does anybody else have any kind of a history or experience with sours? And if so, what are your experiences? Michael Komarov.
Well, I've had of the same type that you're drinking. There's a company called Rodenbach, which I'm sure you've at least heard of. If you haven't had it, they make a really well-known Grand Cru. And
I love that beer.
And they brew some other stuff. They blend just like Silly, but I think they blend in higher amounts. So in other words, I think they use, if I remember their amounts, they use a little bit more of the starter beer, about 20%, and then they blend in 80% of the sour ale. I think that's right.
That used to be beer writer, not the singer Michael Jackson, but beer writer. They used to be beer writer, one of Michael Jackson's favorite beers right there.
It's an excellent blended sour, and I've had a couple of the different ones they make. They're really good, and
great beer writer.
They're great. Rodenbach are great blenders, so they're able to choose, good starter beers which they brew themselves and combine it with the sour ale.
What do they consider that beer? That's a Flanders Red Ale or like a Flanders Ode Braun or something like that?
I'm not sure which, but it's one or the other. And you mentioned the one from Monk's Cafe, which is a Flanders Ale. That's a whole style of sour.
I would assume that the Monk's Cafe, if you have a pretty big liquor store that has a good beer selection where you're at, I would assume that gets pretty good distribution. You should be able to find that beer
I would
at
have
a lot of different spots.
I know people go to this bar in Philadelphia, Monk's Cafe, and they have supposedly one of the better Belgian lists in terms of other Belgian beers they sell.
Sure.
It's supposed to be pretty amazing.
So that's your history with the Belgian beers. I don't know if Jean H. Pierre is available to speak of his Belgian beer history or not.
I've had some Belgian. The only Belgian thing I've had, Eric, was the Belgian IPA from Le Freak. That was the only one from Green Flash. Green Point.
Belgian style pale ale.
Yeah. That was as enjoyable of a beer I've ever had. I mean, that was truly one of the best of the best.
Nice.
So,
and then we probably all had the Blue Moons and the white ales, right? The white wheat beers.
Yep, I've had those.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I wouldn't consider them.
But they're not sour at all.
Right, exactly.
No.
Exactly.
So, you haven't had many actual sour beers in your lifetime, is that right?
I haven't had many because, I've had a few, but like I said, I just don't really gravitate towards them. It's just because of the taste and the flavor, and it's like, they taste like, what I just had the other day, that wine, not wine coolers, but it's that two heart lime. It's like, it's just flavored, right. Okay, maybe, but these are not my things. Give me something more flavorful, something that has a little more sweetness, not overly sweet, but a little bit of a sweetness to it. I'm usually down for that. Adjunct lagers, pale ales, Doppelbocks, Dunkels and things like that, stouts. Those are the beers I more gravitate toward. Those I say, all right, it's hot, I'll drink it because I'm going to cool down, but I'm not going to buy them every day. So,
sure.
And that's kind of my view of it, and that's kind of how I view this sour ale, which I have one more can of, and I'll probably will review it on my channel. Maybe tonight. I don't know.
We have,
if I feel good, if I feel up to it.
We have, he says, Ola from Louisiana. We have watching live. Robert Greenwood. He says, I had a Bell's. He said he had a Bell's sour the other day and it was really nice, tart. I'm wondering, Robert, was it the same one that Michael Komarov has? Was it the Larry's sour?
Was it this one, Larry's latest?
Larry's latest. Let us know in the chat there, Robert. But yeah, my experience with the sour ales. I'm trying to. It was the Bell. He just said it was a Bell's brand, but I bet you that's what it was.
There's a good chance. They may have another one. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember one of the first really actual sour beers that I ever tried, and he says it was. So there you go. Michael Komarov wasn't too fond of it, but it was all right. But my experience with the sour ales is the Flanders and the Flemish style, sort of a red ale. More of a darker, almost more of a malty, almost kind of like a red wine-ish kind of a quality. I believe the first one that I had was the, I don't remember where it was actually from, but it was Belgian, and it was called the Duchess de Bourgogne. And that is a beautiful, beautiful sour red ale from the Flanders, Flemish sort of area of Belgium. I think that's near France, if I'm not mistaken. So I really like that style. And then you can get a Flanders Old Braun.
Right.
Which is almost even more malty than that. And they can really be mouth puckering, but they almost have like this red wine kind of a characteristic that could go with foods just like a red wine, but you kind of have to watch out with the sour beers because that can be a flavor that can take over a little bit. So I had I don't remember when that was, but I had the Duchess de Bourgogne. That kind of floored me a little bit. Then I tried that Grodenbach. I tried that Rodenbach. I think it was the Rodenbach Classic. I've had the Grand Cru, but then I tried the Rodenbach Classic, and I really, really liked that. So I don't remember, as far as the lighter styles of the sour beers are concerned, one of them that I tried.
Well, you mentioned before, Eric, before we started, you mentioned Grimm, and they have several sours.
I have had a couple of sours from Grimm. That's right. I did review on my channel. It was called Grimm Colorfield.
They have more than one. They may have
and the one that I mentioned to you before before we started, which does stick out in my mind. It was called Telekinesis, which is like dry hop sour ale. So and it was more like really Michael Komarov's. It wasn't a darker beer; it was a lighter beer, almost like if you took a cross between a Belgian pale ale and almost like a New England style IPA, and hopped it that way, but then made it really, really mouth puckering and big amounts of the vinegar and big amounts of the lemon juice. Really, really like biting into a fresh lemon with that nice dry hopping kind of a quality that you get from New England. That was a good beer. Now, Grimm is from, I believe they're from upstate New York, but they do a lot of brewing down in Virginia.
They're a gypsy brewer, but they're about to open something in Brooklyn, New York, near me. So we'll see.
So that would be good because, excuse me, down the wrong pipe.
Okay.
But they do a lot of amazing beers and lots of different styles. The only problem is that they can kind of be a little bit pricey, but every now and then it's nice to get a good beer, right? Come on. So that's my experience with sour beers. I like sour beers. Anybody have any final comments, thoughts, anything else to add to sour beer conversation?
I can add one more thing. My original beer that I was going to do when you first announced sours was a beer called Galactica. From
the TV show? No, Galactica?
It's the same name. But it's based on the fact that it's made with Galaxy hops. And again, it's also a kettle sour, and it's from 6 Point. But the problem,
6 Point.
I know you've heard them mentioned before. Anyway, the problem
we reviewed them last week.
The problem with them was that when I bought beer, I bought it quite a while ago, and I was looking at some of the stuff I had, and I am sensitive to the date. So I decided that I would just rather have it myself. And since I had this Bell sour also, I needed another sour, and I had this. I drank the Galactica. It was very good.
I don't know any dating that I can see on my bottle of silly sour. Not really.
That was a company that claims the shelf life on this beer is 6 months, which
maybe.
That's what it says. And this beer was brewed on the 1st of September.
Wow. All right.
So it's within the 6 months.
September 2017, Michael?
Yes.
September 2017?
September 1st. So this is within the 6 month dating, but barely, right? I guess it's not. It's past. At the end of February was over. It's almost.
Bart Robinson is here. Hello, sir. He says, I have been to Monk's Cafe in Philly several times, and they have quite An impressive selection indeed. Cheers, and I got another beer off air, but yeah, cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers to you, Bart.
So let's call that a successful look at sour beers. Not the world's most friendly beer topic, but it is one worth discussing for sure.
Okay.
So we have a couple of topics coming up in the next 2 weeks, or actually the next 1, 2, 3, 4, almost the next 6 weeks here. But we'll plan to collaborate for at least the next 2 weeks that we've actually planned on doing here, folks. We are going to do next week the beers of Samuel Smith Brewery. So get your Sam Smith beer from England and bring that one. And then we're going to do Michael Komaroff's.
I'll look for it. If I could find it in my area, I'll try to find it.
Yeah, we're going to do, and then in 2 weeks, so after Sam Smith.
I'll try to find it in my area.
And then in 2 weeks after the Samuel Smith beers, we're going to do Michael Komaroff's favorite topic, and especially Jean's favorite topic. We're going to do an ode to the Facebook group Regular Ass Beer 2.0. We're going to review regular ass beers, a piss-free zone. And if you can get a cheap hamburger or cheeseburger to go with it, bring one. So we're going to do regular old beers. And if you want to bring,
let us know what the next topic.
I just did. Let us know if you, well, if you want to bring even like a Sam Adams, sure, we'll call that a regular beer, whatever. And then we tentatively have the ideas of barley wines.
Let us know when's the next topic, Eric.
Bucky's still there.
Barley wines, Belgian beers,
when's the next topic?
Beers, 6% beers, Samuel Smith beers. Remember I said that? And then regular ass beer 2.0. All right, we're gonna hang this one up for now. We're gonna go off air and continue more discussions on beer. Until next time.
Okay,
I've been Thomas Metal 75. Jean H. Pierre down in Mobile, Alabama, and we got Michael Komaroff from Brooklyn, New York. And as I say, until next time,
bye from Brooklyn.
Those great beers. Cheers. See you next
Good
Wednesday
night, everybody.
for Samuel
Good night,
Smith
world. Good night,
beers.
America. Good night, world.